I'm on FRN SAAB, and today we got a couple of people from SAAB here. We got Selena, Lauren, Brandon, Anna. Let me know if and Gwen. I believe. So yeah, so we're just gonna start by going through this a little presentation we put together. Anyone from SAAB, feel free to hop in. I have a couple notes of who wants to talk about what. So if I miss you, just speak up and we'll go through that. And then at the end, we'll have some time for Q&As and we can have a small discussion about how we actually implement these strategies um, moving forward for your particular chapter. So what we want to talk about today is how to build strong FRN community on your campus. And all of us have personally been a part of FRN organizations where a lot of our community is built through the volunteering of and food recovery itself. But there are a lot of down periods where maybe we're not getting as many donations or there aren't that many recovery opportunities. Or in some cases, we even have a lot of volunteers, a lot more volunteers than we have recovery opportunities. And we wanted to share some of the ways our organizations have built community outside of those specific volunteer shifts. One of the key reasons we want to do that is because when you're able to retain volunteers without having them do recoveries themselves down the line, that could open up your chapter to grow and do things, make more of an impact. So we're going to go to the next slide here. Julia, if you could move it to the next slide. Yeah. So we're going to go through the following things. We're just going to go through building community beyond shifts, communication tips. This is both within ourselves, within the organization, as well as with external shareholders like stakeholders like the kitchen administration staff, your school campus events, other clubs in your region, etc. Measuring success and maybe some closing thoughts. All right. So how to build community beyond food recovery shifts. Let's go to the next slide. So first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to host general meetings, general body meetings. You get to know each other as well as the volunteers and offer additional opportunities to deliver impact maybe that are outside of the food recovery space itself. So Jane had a bunch of thoughts around this, but I don't believe she could make it today. So I'm going to hand it off to someone else on SAAB if anyone else has led general meetings. Maybe we can start with Lauren.
Yeah. Like Diraj said, general meetings are a great way to bring people in without needing those actual recovery events. Um, and so these could be, you know, business meetings where you're kind of, making decisions, talking about um, upcoming opportunities, letting people kind of meet each other. But it could be more social, where you are focusing more on just meeting each other and kind of getting to know each other and bond. If you don't want to necessarily stick to just business discussions. Um, Anyone else have any other uh, input on that?
My
Yeah,
chat,
go
sorry,
ahead. Go
Deej.
ahead.
I don't, it's hard on Zoom, so I'm just gonna jump in. But Brown's FRN chapter has been focused on sort of the social side of the general body meetings, just to try to foster community. We had like a fall themed body meeting that we baked pies for to incentivize our broader volunteer base to come. And we hosted different activities. So that was like strictly social. But you could also like merge um, general meetings with recoveries. So we're planning right now a collaboration between our FRN chapter and another club at Brown called Global Research and Consulting that is trying to focus more on um, sort of nonprofit volunteer work in the Providence area. So we're going to have an event, like a sandwich making event, that will sort of blend social, getting to know people on campus and the broader community with also just having sandwiches that we can then donate to our community partners that already pick up from us based on our recoveries on campus.
And just adding on to that really quickly, so from Pitt, our chapter is pretty large. We have a really diverse set of volunteers, and our recoveries don't always accommodate the times for all our volunteers. So general body meetings are a great way to make announcements and talk about a lot of things you might not be able to talk to your volunteers at in recoveries. This can be just business stuff, as Lauren mentioned, but also fun opportunities on how it can contribute to food sustainability or other ways you can get involved. Might be just announcements of, hey, we're getting together a thank you party for our partners. Anybody want to contribute to that? So it's a great way not just to interface with your volunteers outside recoveries, but also just to ensure administrative stuff gets through to all your volunteers as well.
Awesome. And then Brandon or Selena, this could maybe be a chance for y'all to share a little bit, maybe also about how you've created more socials for your club.
Yeah, I could touch upon that, and Selena, feel free to jump in. But since we have a very large volunteering pool and we don't have as many volunteer opportunities, we've sort of shift towards more social aspect over the past few years. So we've, as Anna does at Brown, we partner with other clubs. So we have a fairly large sustainability group on campus that's oversees a lot of sustainability movement and clubs and initiatives. So in reaching out to there, we have a large pool of people who have similar food sustainability projects or general sustainability movements that are interested in what we do as a club. And we are also similarly interested in what they do as an organization. So we've worked with them on joint initiatives or just um, having joint social gatherings. For example, we had a meeting with the hydroponics club and we just talked about sustainable agriculture, which is adjacent to both of our club's purposes, and also just had a little social with pizza and a little fun workshop activity. So that was really enjoyable. We've also had really cool social aspects in which we might make cards for one of our partners because one of our partners donates food to a hospital. So we write get well cards, we make little drawings. So in conjunction with the food that we recover and then donate, we also have these cards. And the process of doing that as a group is also very fun. And there's some pretty cool cards, I have to say, in doing that. So there's different ways to incorporate a social aspect to your organization besides just recoveries.
Yeah, just to add on that, we also had an event that was closer to the end of the semester where we like went over the metrics of all of our recoveries or um and like like how we improved this year and what we can work on. And we shared these ideas across other sustainability clubs including like the gardening club, which was involved with like food waste and um, making sure like eating healthy and like sustainable ways to get those food items. And also, we also partnered with the Pit Pantry at the time. So all these clubs that were related to like food and health, we were able to share ideas at this sort of meeting and celebrate all of our accomplishments. So I feel like that's um, a nice way for a bunch of clubs to learn from other clubs and also have volunteers um, basically be a part of all these different aspects.
Awesome. That all sounds great. So those are some ways uh, that we go through this process of setting up general meetings. Those are just a couple different flavors of general meetings. Let's go to the next slide. So oftentimes we have so many, we also have the ability to do on-campus events that outside of general body meetings, we have, uh, we just heard of a couple slight variations of this, but the on-campus events that we want to talk about here are going to be like more educational advocacy related workshops and maybe even appreciation events. I'm going to hand this off to, sorry, let's see. Anna, do you want to go first regarding what type of events you've held?
Sure. Well, one thing that I really like that our chapter does, and maybe this is widespread, but we have like an end of year food drive. So collecting non-perishable foods that students have kept in their dorms and aren't gonna eat or haven't eaten. Um, and we'll put cardboard boxes in a bunch of different dorms on campus that will really fill up. And then for our sort of last you could merge like volunteer appreciation and also like a general body last recovery effort. Like there are a lot of different options. So we had like all of our volunteers come and we were all sort of like on our campus green like with snacks, and it was like a volunteer appreciation, but it was also all of us collecting all the food that for the food drive. So that was one example. Yeah, anyone else?
Yeah, let's pass it off to Lydia. Lydia, if you're able to speak.
Yes, I have part of a carrot in my mouth, so please excuse me. But I guess something related to this. Usually, when we do events, they're not like large scale events because we don't have the capacity to like plan those, and so our events are similar to our like general meetings, but we'll have like a fun topic or thing to do. So one thing that we did was similar to the cards for people in the hospital that someone else talked about earlier. We did appreciation cards for our food donors. So we got together to create cards, and we like got to like work on some graphic design stuff and maybe even like our own like hand drawn stuff. So that was pretty fun. And we paired that with sharing some food at that event too. So that was nice.
Awesome. And then, Gwen, is there anything you want to add on these particular events?
For sure. Something that so I came from Carleton College, and one of the events that we did pretty much every term was a Weigh the Waste. And then so this is slightly affiliated with what we're doing to recover food, but this is more for uneaten food. And that was partnering with the dining halls to have volunteer events for people to put all of their food waste that is not able to be recovered in a separate bin, and then we weigh that to see to get back to the dining hall, see what is being wasted, what are people not consuming that they're putting onto their plates. So that was a way that we were able to have also an additional volunteer event, as well as a way to also give back to the dining halls in an additional manner. So.
Awesome. So yeah, those are some of the different events that we've kind of done here. So let's go to the next slide. So the other thing we wanted to talk about was kind of volunteer opportunities outside of your regular recovery shifts. And part of what we want to focus on is finding partner agencies or nonprofits in your campus and being able to coordinate with them to get some sort of volunteer shifts set up, even though the volunteers are coming through your FRN organization. Brandon, Selena, talk about how you use sustainability clubs to organize these.
Sure, I can hop on that and so I can jump in as needed later for things I don't cover. But to the big sustainability group that we have on campus, there's always a lot of stuff going on, and there's always some sort of initiative, some project happening. And so that's opened up to the entire group of these sustainability clubs. So those are always ways to not only provide new opportunities for our volunteers that aren't make it to the recoveries because it's just not feasible for their schedule, but it's another way to get involved and be active in a movement that they really care about. And then I would also say adjacent to that, These sustainability clubs are also working on initiatives that typically benefit us as a club, but also partners we work with too. And so in that way, they're also still involved in food recovery, or at least adjacently involved. And that's also something that's just very beneficial for us as a club and allows them to contribute to us, even though they're not able to make the recoveries.
Yeah, so on top of just partnering with other organizations on campus involved in sustainability and food recovering initiatives, we also have, we always discuss in our general body meetings the partnerships that we have for donating food and also packaging meals for the community. And so volunteers are always able to go to these volunteer opportunities with us. And then afterwards, if they really like the opportunity, reach out to the organization. We're always really open to volunteers asking us their contact information and also just going with them on our own free time as well if they need extra assistance. So that's always another opportunity for them.
To provide another example, our chapter sort of started to pilot this just this year, kind of offering outside volunteer opportunities because we had so much volunteer interest, but not enough on-campus recovery shifts. So it's kind of difficult to organize at first. Like you have to reach out to community partners or like the partners you already have who you give your recovered food to and see about their volunteer opportunities. And then also, like Selena was kind of touching on, like you would potentially want your e-board, your chapter members to visit this opportunity and sort of see what it would be like so that you can give your volunteers more sort of stability with these opportunities that are off campus. So you could either accompany them or you could just make sure that it's a good and um, sort of easy to do, um, clear cut opportunity. So like one example is we partner with this organization called Sunrise Forever that has weekly Sunday or Saturday like free seafood donations. So they'll basically get a bunch of fish, mussels, and like crab meat, and people will come and like fill up bags for free of all of these things. So that was like one cool opportunity among a lot of different ones that we found. But yeah, it can be jarring to start off exploring these opportunities, but can be a really good option.
Yeah, and personally for myself and my chapter back a couple years ago, what we used to do is we used to have someone on the executive board sit on, and their entire job was to reach out to donation organizations, various food banks and shelters in our near our school, and to find different places to donate rather than just our on-campus pantry. But we also had another person on our executive board that would find partnerships with other clubs, like our gardening club. I think someone else mentioned that as well as some of the other green clubs, to see if there was any opportunity for us to do on-campus volunteering for another organization that maybe needed the volunteering itself, but was unable to recruit volunteers. I think one of the great things about being a part of FRN is that we have generally high visibility, and so a lot of people often know to find us when they want to volunteer. And some other maybe smaller organizations on your campus might not have that same opportunity. So it's obviously always a great idea to share and have that partnership built in. For our partner agencies, partner nonprofits where we would donate the food, we also used those relationships to see if they needed any other volunteering down the line. Obviously, we donate food to them regularly. And if anyone had any volunteer opportunities, we would share that with our general body. finally, we also used our connection here at FRN to partner with another chapter. I went to Georgia Tech, and so Emory was right down the street from us in Atlanta, and we partnered with Emory on their slow cook program, I believe is what it was called. Essentially, it was rather than just recovering food, they used gleaned crops to cook meals for the local shelters. It was a really neat program that they had that we at Georgia Tech did not have the ability to pull off because we didn't have access to a kitchen, and we definitely did not have access to gleaned crops or the know-how to do so. And so being able to partner with Emory on such a interesting program actually got us more volunteers because it was a new opportunity that a lot of people wanted to be a part of. Rather than just packaging food, they wanted to cook food. And so we were able to send a lot of volunteers to Emory. I think it happened shortly after I left, so I'm not exactly sure how transportation was organized or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure all of those things could be figured out fairly easily with the help of FRN National. Reach out to FRN National if you have any questions about organizing events with other organizations within your region. They often have a lot of different connections that can help expedite this process. But if not, you can always go on Google, just email them. Next time you donate food, drop a couple off to a local homeless shelter or a local pantry, and that'll often open up more opportunities for you as well. With that, anyone else from SAAB have any other thoughts on this topic before we move to the next slide?
I want to add that, you know, our chapter, we went into a volunteer opportunity with our partner agency thinking we would be working in the kitchen with them, but what they really needed us to do was clean other places in the shelter. So, you know, you're there to help them in whatever way they need. So don't be surprised if they ask you to do something that you weren't expecting, as long as you're comfortable with it. That help is where it's needed, I guess.
Yeah, always do what's needed. So a good call out, Lydia. Awesome. Let's go to the next slide here. Communication tips. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So how to communicate with partners. So again, like I mentioned, partners here entails a lot of different things. Generally, you want someone on your executive board to be responsible for this for various different things. Like I mentioned, we had a person on our executive board because we were very lucky and we had a really large executive board. We had one person that was in charge of communicating with partner organizations where we were donating food. So all the food pantries, including our on-campus food pantry, that person would be in charge of. Then we had another person that was in charge of all the places that would donate food. We had donations from from on-campus restaurants as well as the dining halls. So that person was in charge of those. And then we had another person dedicated to communicating with all of our Greek life chapters that would donate their leftover meals to us. It's a lot of communication, a lot of emails, a lot of following up again, because donating food is not top of mind for most of these people. They are serving food to a certain population, and that's their end goal. They're trying to get that done. And so it needs to be a lot of proactive communication to make sure, hey, is this happening? Blah, blah, blah. After we had, so those were three people there, right there, communicating with the people donating the food. The last person that we needed was someone to communicate with all of our volunteers of where they needed to be and where they needed to go in order to make this happen. We used we used GroupMe just because we had so many volunteers and so many different people. We'd send out I believe, a when to meet style scheduling tool. I can't remember the name, but basically people would sign up for slots, and then we would communicate with them based on which slot they added on GroupMe, and that's how we would communicate where to go, when to go, and how to pick it up. But yeah, I think setting up a means of communication regularly is amazing. Establish regular check-ins with partners. Like I said, it's better to be proactive than reactive, because the last thing you want is a volunteer going to a partner and finding out they don't need any food. That really de-incentivizes them from volunteering again, and you really don't want to lose volunteers. Finally, you want to establish expectations prior to partnership. Yeah, what days you're gonna go, how much food you should expect. This will help you organize your logistics. If you need 2 drivers versus 1 driver, if you need 10 volunteers versus like 5 volunteers, these are all things that I think you again have to be very proactive about. I think we can just go down the line then, for everyone else in FRN SAAB to give their input about what how they handle this stuff. Maybe let's start with Brandon.
Yeah, so D-Raj, you pretty much covered almost everything that we did for the most part. I would say the only thing I'd have to add is ensure that you have smooth communication within your e-board and on what expectations are for communication. In terms of if someone can't say send an email because they're out for a trip. So some of the members of our e-board were busy and had to go on conferences, so knowing when to cover for each other, communication on when to take over, and maybe on some days our personal point of contact for a partner just wouldn't be able to make it to the recovery. So in making that communication clear, saying your normal point of contact for donations won't be there today, but I'll be there instead. Please call me, text me when you arrive for transportation so we can go bring the food out. So just being very clear on sudden changes and making sure that all things are communicated in a orderly fashion. That helps things be a lot smoother during day of recoveries.
Selena, anything to add to that?
Yeah, on transportation, there is also a possibility of asking the partnership that you have if they have transportation means of coming to your school to pick up the food. Because for some of our partners that we had, there were like designated drivers that just came to our school and we set up a meeting time for them and we just brought the food out from our kitchen and they were able to pick it up at a regular time every single week. And on top of like another way to approach volunteers being able to transport the food properly and manage everything properly is instead of like, I know, Jiraj, you said you used the when to meet to coordinate that with all the volunteers, but we just had a set time set out every single day for our specific recoveries. And whichever volunteers were free during that time, it was just easier to manage. So we set the date and times every single week. Pretty much, it was always the same time, and then volunteers would sign up whenever they were free. And this just makes it more easy for our partners to have a set time to come and know when like things are going to be ready. So it ensures that we finish packing everything and for so that the partner doesn't wait on us as well when they come to pick up the food.
Awesome. Anna?
I think most of it's been covered. I would just say, um, you can't always solve for little blips that happen in terms of like if one volunteer maybe doesn't show up to their shift for whatever reason and that causes sort of confusion with partners. As long as you have clear communication channels, like I remember this happened around a week ago, we needed to let one of our partners into the fridge. So as long as those are established, then you can pretty much address your issues, and keep both the partners and your organization happy. I feel like that's the main thing.
Lydia? Oh, Lydia can't talk. That's my bad. Gwen?
Sure. What I'll add is just the nature of any organization in a college working with a community organization is that the college is just going to have a lot more turnover than whatever the community organization will typically see. Just in terms of graduation, people in the leadership are probably not going to be there for more than 2 years. Um, so we found it to be really important that at the beginning of every term, we always had one person who introduced themselves, identified themselves as the primary contact with our community member. And then anytime that person changed, we always made sure to make it very clear so that community partner knew who to reach out to if they ever had an issue. Um, and then we also made sure at the beginning of every term, so Carlton's trimester, so we had quite a bit of interruption throughout in just one year, the stop and start of our deliveries to different partners. So we always made sure at the beginning of the term, we'd say, this is our start date. We're going to start collecting from you, say, this coming Wednesday and at this time. And then we're going to end, and then we'd give them the end date for the trimester. Then we'd also give the follow-up and like a warning end 1 week prior. So just making sure, because we know our schedules are a little weird, being with a school schedule, um, that the community partner was very aware when they're going to start, when they're going to end, and then also who's their current contact person with the organization.
And Lauren?
I guess there's been a lot of great tips and advice. So I think the one thing that I can add is just to be flexible, because especially with the more partners that you start working with, you'll have to be a lot more flexible with, what's the best way to communicate with each of them. I know some of our partners preferred more like phone, whether it's texting and calling, while others wanted something more like email to have that kind of hard copy of what was communicated. And the one thing that we found that was helpful was for that email communication was we created one Gmail account for our org. So that if there is someone was out and someone else needed to send a quick email, anyone on our executive board had access, so that we could still communicate with any and all of our partners, even if the one main contact was out or just end of year and exec board was changing. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. So that's about communication with partners. That's what we have on that. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, whoops. So communicating with dining halls, this is very similar to what we did with our partners. We want to have primary contact in the kitchen, keep all important information in one central location. I think, yeah, I don't think this really strays much from all the tips we've given so far. It is a little bit different because this is really someone that is working for the school. So it is important to find the right person because not everyone has the ability to allow you to recover food. I think the best way to find this person is work through your school's administration. Um, there should be someone, if you have an on campus pantry, usually the faculty advisor for that on campus pantry should know the right person to work with. Otherwise, I think you can also reach out to student services and find the right person that they've been working with the dining provider. I think at most schools, the dining provider is a contracted company, and so they're not exactly a school administrator, but school administrators work with them, and so that's your way into working with them as well, as opposed to just reaching out to them as an individual student. Is there anything anyone else wants to add on this particular slide? All right. If not, we'll go ahead and go on to this next slide. So how to handle excess volunteers. I think we've mentioned this in a couple different spaces. We want to expand to additional food recovery locations. So this is working with those partner agencies, finding those opportunities there, as well as your other campus organizations. Branch out into the community, right? We don't want the food to get stuck in a bubble. A lot of all our college campuses are in food deserts, and they are this weird pocket of food surplus and otherwise scarce, like where other resources might be scarce. So it's very important that the food that you're recovering also reaches outside of the school community itself. And you can also do advocacy and inspire change on campus. I think one of the best things about engaging through the general body meetings we mentioned, or socials, or with our partner organizations, is that we are showing people that there's more than one way to impact this problem. And so, personally, at our school, we had so many volunteers that we decided to do an advocacy event because we didn't have enough food to recover. And we had that many more volunteers. So we had everyone sit down and use some of FRN National's resources to do a couple of advocacy campaigns. I think it really does help to do it consistently so that people know what to expect. People always know what to expect with food recovery, right? You show up, you pack food. Same with advocacy, same with any of these other extra volunteer opportunities that you provide. The more regularly you can provide them, the more likely you're going to get volunteers that can actually come out and help and maybe interested in doing so. We also did a lot of, we tried doing gleaning a couple times with local farms to help donate gleaned produce to other organizations. But yeah, anyone have any thoughts on that they want to add?
I'll just say really quickly, volunteers want to help. They often have great ideas. So don't be afraid to ask volunteers for ideas of how they want to help and use that as the basis for your next big project, because that's how we got some of our greatest ideas, and they've been going really well.
Yeah, to add on that, another way to get excess volunteers to be involved in giving us like new ideas for the club. We actually, for our chapter at Pitt, we had small subcommittees where it was if anyone was interested in getting more involved in the planning of these recoveries or doing these initiatives, we gave them an open space to be a part of the subcommittee and give their ideas. And then as an exec board, we would end up talking about the ideas that were discussed in these subcommittees. And each subcommittee would be led by an executive member. So that's also another way to have volunteers be more involved in the process and everything.
Awesome. All right, let's go to the next slide. So measuring success. I think the key thing here is, if we go to the next slide. Sorry, my screen was frozen. So yeah, we want to measure our success in terms of building a strong community. I think a couple of ways you can validate if this is working or not is by keeping track of how many people are signing up. You want to also send out a little bit of a end of semester review with your volunteers, see if there's anything they would improve, anything they would like to see. Yeah, and I think it would also be wise to engage with the partners. Say you've provided volunteer shifts to some of your partner agencies. Get some feedback from them. See how they've enjoyed it. If we're consistently sending them enough volunteers to make a difference for them, etc. And this one's huge. Encourage consistent volunteers to run for leadership positions. That's how myself personally, we ended up with almost like a 10-person volunteer leadership board because so many people applied that were consistent volunteers. And this allowed us to do a lot of different things without really burdening any one single person. And I think that's part of it, right? Like, it was a community. It built a team that I was really proud to be a part of. And I think, yeah, number of people that want to lead your organization is a great metric to see how successful building community was. Yeah, I'm just gonna open it up to anyone on SAAB if y'all have any other metrics you want to share.
One small thing that we did among the executive team at the end of every term, we'd occasionally do a big thank you event, some sort of potluck. But if not all volunteers could do that, we still wanted to thank them, and we typically did that with little printout cards where we'd make sure to write how many pounds we recovered that term, which was a nice metric to note, so that the students knew exactly what they were contributing to. And we also just attached candy. I mean, college students like having a little candy reward. And we stuck that in the campus mailboxes. And so even if they're not able to attend, say, our bigger pizza party or other potluck event, they can still feel appreciated at the end of each term. It helped us with making sure we maintain the same volunteers term after term.
I would just add to that real quickly. So we talked a lot about volunteers keeping them happy and engaged, but it's also important to mention that we also want to make sure our partners within the school, but also external to the school that we work with, are also content with what's going on with the organization, and also check in with each other on the board, making sure everyone on the board is very happy with the direction of the club, making sure everyone on the board is happy with, yeah, just happy with how the board is handling and managing all the administrative sides of the FRN chapter. So just making sure that everyone in the whole entire process is happy, and not just the volunteers too, is important.
Awesome. Let's go to the next slide. I think that's all we have for today. We wanted to leave some time for any questions based on what we've said. So we wanted to hear from y'all. Feel free to drop them in chat or just come off off mute and let us know if you have any questions. I think otherwise, I'll hand it back to Julia.
I do actually have one kind of prompting question for you all. We get this a lot from FRN National, and I know some folks on this call have had this issue slash similar situation. We mentioned earlier, like communicating with partners. How do you all go about communicating with dining if they are not allowing you to recover food? Is my prompting question. So if anyone wants to unmute and tackle that one, I know it's different at every spot.
I can go ahead. Brown's had our fair share of struggle with dining hall admin. It really depends on just like who is like the discretion of the person who fills like the VP dining role. So it's not like standard across all campuses. We specifically like there are liability concerns over hot food and things like that. Um, Other than talking to dining about sort of good faith laws and how we're protected, another thing that I think really gives administration ease is like making sure your food safety practices are up to snuff. Making sure that you, well, I don't know if this is a standard practice, but we have all of our volunteers at our chapter do a food safety licensing course. And we also make sure to clean the fridge every weekend. So we kind of instituted these practices as a response to some pushback we were getting from dining. Um, and yeah, making sure even if you're facing some adversity with administration, not to be combative, but instead to think about ways to demonstrate and assuage any concerns about your operations. And then from there, like if you're still having roadblocks, all of the other things we talked about in terms of expanding operations beyond campus would really apply.
I would just quickly add to that. A lot of times there is resistance from dining halls because there is some concern. Rarely it's because they just don't want you to use their space. So trying to empathize with what their concerns are and finding an alternative solution might not be the most ideal, but it's often the best way to approach these situations as well. So however that comes up, just try to understand why they're giving resistance and then using that to then adjust to whatever is going on between or find some sort of compromise between the two parties.
Okay, thank you both for that. I know it's the dining conversations are either really simple, straightforward, they're on board, and then sometimes you can get some folks right that have some fear over donating food, which is all honestly pretty valid, right? And just having those conversations. So that was spot on, both of you. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for hopping on this call and presenting and talking about all the different things, communication and food recovery and Food Recovery Network in general. As I mentioned, if anyone has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Our email is right here of programs at Food Recovery Network. We are here to help. And thank you all so much for presenting and talking about your experiences with Food Recovery Network. And honestly, just helping to fight waste and feed people all across the country. It's always cool when we can hear from different folks. Every single chapter I've learned is run a little bit different. And 3 years later, I'm still like surprised when people come up with a different event or things like that. And I'm like, there really is so much that we all can do collectively. So as D-Raj mentioned, if you ever want to be connected with another student chapter or an alumni member or anyone who has experience, or you're looking for someone with experience in a certain subset of FRN, let us know when we can help connect you. So cool. All right. Well, thank you all. Happy Monday and have a good rest of your day.